What if the smartest irrigation system ever invented doesn't use electricity, pumps, or hoses? What if the secret to watering plants perfectly was discovered 4,000 years ago? Most people think watering a garden is simple. You turn on a hose, pour water over the soil, and hope your plants grow strong. But if you've ever tried gardening, you already know something strange happens. The soil dries out quickly, water disappears faster than expected, and somehow, even after watering regularly, plants still struggle. The truth is that most modern watering methods are surprisingly inefficient. A large portion of the water never reaches the roots. It evaporates under the sun, runs across the surface, or sinks deeper than the plants can reach. In other words, we are often watering the ground, not the plants. But long before hoses, sprinklers, and irrigation systems existed, ancient farmers faced the exact same problem. They lived in dry climates, where every drop of water mattered. Wasting water was not just inefficient. It could mean the difference between survival and hunger. So they created a solution that was simple, quiet, and incredibly effective. A buried clay pot that waters plants slowly from underground. This ancient method is called the Olla irrigation system, and it has been used for thousands of years across different parts of the world. And surprisingly, many modern gardeners are rediscovering it today because it solves one of the biggest problems in gardening: delivering water directly to plant roots without waste. In this video, you'll discover how this ancient irrigation trick works, why it's so effective, and how you can use it in your own garden today. By the end, you'll understand why a simple clay pot buried in the soil can sometimes outperform modern watering methods. If you enjoy learning practical gardening techniques that make your garden more efficient and easier to maintain, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments if watering your garden has ever been more difficult than it should be. Now let's begin with the real problem that gardeners have been facing for centuries. At first glance, watering plants seems incredibly simple. Plants need water, so we give them water. The soil gets wet, the leaves look refreshed, and the job seems done. But the reality happening below the surface tells a very different story. When you pour water onto the ground, using a hose or watering can, several things happen at once. Some of the water soaks into the soil. Some spreads across the surface. Some quickly evaporates into the air. And some drains deeper into the ground where plant roots cannot reach it. This means a large portion of the water never actually feeds the plant. Imagine pouring a glass of water onto a sidewalk on a hot day. Within minutes, it disappears. The same thing happens in gardens, especially in warm climates. The sun heats the soil surface and moisture escapes into the air before the roots have time to absorb it. Another problem is how water spreads through the soil. Most roots are not sitting right on the surface. They grow deeper, searching for stable moisture. When water is applied from above, it often wets only the top layer first. That surface layer dries quickly, forcing gardeners to water again and again. This creates a frustrating cycle. The more the surface dries, the more often we water. And the more often we water, the more water gets wasted through evaporation and runoff. Now imagine watering a plant during the hottest part of the day. The sun is strong, the soil surface is hot. As soon as water touches the ground, part of it begins evaporating immediately. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has tiny holes in the bottom. Another hidden issue is uneven watering. When water is poured from above, it rarely spreads perfectly around the plant. Some areas receive more water than others. Some roots stay dry while others sit in overly wet soil. Plants prefer stability, but surface watering often creates constant swings between too wet and too dry. Over time, this weakens plant roots. Instead of growing deep and strong, roots stay close to the surface, where water is most frequently applied. This makes plants more vulnerable to heat and drought. Gardeners often respond by watering even more. But adding more water doesn't solve the real problem. It only increases waste. This is why many experienced gardeners eventually realize that the real challenge is not simply watering more. The real challenge is delivering water exactly where plants need it most: underground, near the roots, slowly and consistently. And this is where ancient farmers made a discovery that changed everything. Instead of pouring water on top of the soil, they buried the water source underground. And in the next part, we'll explore the ancient device that made this possible, and how a simple clay pot became one of the most efficient irrigation tools ever created. To understand the brilliance of the Olla system, imagine a very simple object. No electronics, no moving parts, No modern engineering, just a clay pot buried in the ground. At first glance, it looks almost too simple to be revolutionary. But this small device solves the exact problem we discussed earlier, delivering water directly to plant roots without waste. An olla is a traditional clay pot that is buried in the soil with only its neck or lid visible above the surface. The pot is filled with water, and then something remarkable begins to happen. Instead of pouring water all over the soil, the water slowly seeps through the walls of the clay pot and moves directly into the surrounding earth. But it doesn't flood the soil. It doesn't spill out all at once. It moves gradually, almost invisibly, through the porous surface of the clay. The soil surrounding the pot absorbs the moisture slowly, and plant roots begin to grow toward the source. Over time, the roots essentially build a direct relationship with the pot. Instead of waiting for water from the surface, the plants draw water from the underground reservoir exactly when they need it. This creates a completely different watering dynamic. In traditional watering, the gardener decides when plants receive water. But with an olla, the soil itself regulates the flow. When the soil around the pot is dry, moisture moves outward from the pot into the soil. When the soil becomes moist enough, the flow slows down naturally. In other words, the plant ecosystem controls the watering process. This natural balance is what makes the system so efficient. Water moves only when the soil needs it. And because the water is released underground, very little is lost to evaporation. This method has been used for thousands of years in regions where water was scarce, and every drop mattered. Farmers in dry environments needed a way to keep crops alive with minimal water. The olla system allowed them to maintain consistent soil moisture without wasting precious resources. Another advantage of the system is how it encourages healthier root growth. Because the water source is below the surface, plant roots grow deeper into the soil instead of staying near the top layer. Deep roots make plants more stable, more resilient to heat, and better able to survive dry periods. This is the opposite of what often happens with surface watering. When water is frequently applied from above, roots learn to stay shallow. They become dependent on constant watering. With an underground water source, plants adapt differently. They develop strong root networks that reach toward the clay pot, creating a stable water supply system beneath the soil. From the outside, the garden looks ordinary. You see plants growing normally. But beneath the soil, a quiet partnership has formed between clay, water, and roots. And the most fascinating part is that this system works without pumps, timers, or technology. It works because of a property hidden inside the clay itself. In the next part, we will explore the real scientific secret behind the olla system, why clay allows water to pass through slowly, and how this natural material turns a simple pot into one of the most efficient irrigation tools ever created. By now, you understand the basic idea behind the olla, a buried clay pot that slowly releases water directly to plant roots. But here's the question that changes everything for a gardener. Why is this ancient method often more efficient than modern watering techniques? The answer lies in something simple but powerful. Plants drink only when they are thirsty. In most gardens, watering happens on a schedule. You turn on the hose, you run sprinklers, you pour water across the soil surface. The problem is that plants are passive in this process. They receive water whether they need it or not. Sometimes too much, sometimes too little, sometimes at the wrong time of day. This is where the olla completely flips the system. Instead of forcing water onto plants, the olla allows plants to pull water toward themselves. The porous clay wall of the pot acts like a natural filter. When the surrounding soil becomes dry, the soil creates a suction force. That force gently pulls water through the microscopic pores in the clay and into the soil around the roots. But when the soil is already moist, something remarkable happens. The water simply stays inside the pot. The system automatically regulates itself. Think of it like placing a sponge next to a small container of water. If the sponge is dry, it absorbs water quickly. If the sponge is already wet, it barely absorbs anything. The same principle happens underground with the olla. This creates several powerful advantages that many gardeners never realize. First, water waste almost disappears. Traditional watering methods lose huge amounts of water to evaporation, especially during hot weather. When water sits on the soil surface, the sun quickly pulls it back into the air. With an olla, the water stays underground where the sun cannot reach it. Second, plant roots grow stronger and deeper. When water is only available below the soil surface, roots naturally stretch downward to reach it. Deeper roots make plants more stable, more drought-resistant, and more capable of absorbing nutrients. Third, weeds struggle to survive. Most weeds depend on surface moisture to germinate. When water stays underground near the Olla, the top layer of soil remains relatively dry. That means fewer weed seeds successfully sprout. But perhaps the most surprising benefit is consistency. Plants thrive on stable conditions. Sudden floods of water followed by long dry periods stress the plant and slow growth. The Olla eliminates these extremes. Instead of occasional heavy watering, plants receive a slow, steady supply exactly where they need it. Gardeners often notice that plants near an Olla grow faster, produce healthier leaves, and require far less maintenance. This ancient tool quietly creates a balanced environment below the soil, where roots can thrive without constant human intervention. And this leads to an even more interesting question. If this system is so efficient, how did ancient farmers discover it thousands of years ago without modern science? The answer reveals something fascinating about observation, survival, and the hidden intelligence of traditional gardening methods. And in the next part, we'll uncover the surprising history of how early civilizations developed this technique long before irrigation systems or garden hoses existed. Thousands of years before hoses, sprinklers, or automated irrigation systems existed, farmers faced a simple but brutal challenge. How do you keep crops alive when water is scarce? In dry regions, rain was unpredictable. Rivers could be far away. Carrying water by hand took enormous effort. Every drop mattered. Wasting water was not just inconvenient, it could mean losing an entire harvest. This pressure forced ancient farmers to become incredibly observant. Instead of relying on complex technology, they studied nature closely. They watched how soil behaved after rain. They noticed where plants grew strongest. They observed how water moved through the ground. Over time, they began to understand something subtle but powerful. Water stored underground lasted much longer than water spread on the surface. Surface water disappeared quickly. The sun evaporated it. Wind carried moisture away. But water hidden beneath the soil stayed protected. Clay pots were already common in many ancient civilizations. People used them to store grains, oil, wine, and water. But someone eventually made an important observation. Unglazed clay pots slowly leaked moisture. If you filled a clay jar with water and left it sitting in dry soil, the outside of the pot would become damp. Tiny amounts of water would seep through the porous clay walls. This small detail sparked a powerful idea. Instead of trying to stop the pot from leaking, what if the leak could be useful? Farmers began experimenting. They buried clay pots in their fields, filled them with water, and planted crops nearby. Over time, they noticed something remarkable. Plants growing near the buried pot stayed healthy even when rainfall was low. Even more surprising, the soil around the pot remained evenly moist without becoming muddy or flooded. What they had accidentally created was a natural irrigation system that worked quietly beneath the ground. This technique spread across many ancient cultures. Archaeological evidence shows similar irrigation methods used in parts of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East thousands of years ago. Farmers who lived in harsh climates relied on these buried clay pots to keep crops alive during long dry seasons. The method required almost no tools, no machinery, and no complex knowledge. Just a simple clay container, water, and patience. What makes this even more fascinating is how modern science later confirmed why it works so well. The porous structure of unglazed clay acts like a membrane. Water moves through the tiny pores based on differences in moisture between the inside of the pot and the surrounding soil. When soil dries out, it naturally pulls water through the clay. When the soil is already moist, the movement slows down. This natural balance prevents overwatering and underwatering at the same time. Ancient farmers may not have known the scientific explanation, but they understood the results. Their crops survived drought. Their water lasted longer. Their gardens stayed productive. In many ways, this system is smarter than modern irrigation. It works automatically, requires no electricity, and adjusts itself based on the needs of the soil. But here's where things become even more interesting. For centuries, this method quietly existed in traditional farming communities. Then, as modern irrigation systems spread across the world, The technique slowly faded from common use. And yet today, gardeners everywhere are rediscovering this 4,000-year-old trick. In the next part, we'll explore why the Olla method is suddenly becoming popular again, and how modern gardeners are using this ancient idea to grow healthier plants while using far less water. For thousands of years, the Olla method quietly existed in traditional farming communities. Then modern irrigation systems arrived. Sprinklers, hoses, drip lines, timers, pumps. These new tools promise speed and convenience, and for a long time they dominated the world of gardening. But something interesting began to happen in recent years. Gardeners started noticing a problem. Modern watering systems were not always as efficient as they seemed. Large amounts of water were being wasted. Sprinklers sprayed sidewalks. Hoses flooded soil surfaces. Evaporation pulled moisture back into the air before plants could absorb it. In hot climates, a large percentage of irrigation water simply disappeared before reaching the roots. At the same time, many regions began experiencing more frequent droughts. Water restrictions became common. Gardeners started searching for ways to grow healthy plants while using less water. This is when the ancient Olla quietly returned. What surprised many people was how perfectly this old technique fits modern gardening challenges. In a world increasingly focused on sustainability, efficiency, and resilience, the Olla offers something rare: a low-tech solution that performs incredibly well. Modern gardeners who try the method often report dramatic changes. Water consumption can drop significantly because almost every drop goes directly to the root zone. Instead of watering entire garden beds, the moisture spreads slowly outward from the buried pot exactly where plants need it. Maintenance also becomes easier. Rather than watering every day, gardeners often refill their Ollas only every few days, sometimes even once a week depending on climate and soil conditions. This creates a garden that is far more forgiving for busy schedules. Another benefit is plant health. Because the soil remains evenly moist underground, plants avoid the stress of extreme wet and dry cycles. Leaves stay stronger. Growth becomes more stable. Fruit and vegetable plants often produce more consistently. Even small backyard gardens can benefit from this system. A single Olla can support several plants at once depending on its size. Gardeners place them between tomatoes, peppers, herbs, or leafy greens, creating a steady underground water source. The simplicity of the system is part of its magic. There are no hoses to untangle, no batteries to replace, no timers to program. Once the pot is buried and filled with water, nature takes over. Some gardeners even create homemade versions using 2 unglazed clay pots sealed together, turning simple materials into a powerful irrigation tool. This return to ancient knowledge highlights something important about gardening. Innovation does not always mean inventing something new. Sometimes the most powerful ideas are the ones that have quietly worked for thousands of years. The Olla reminds us that ancient farmers solved many problems long before modern technology existed. They relied on observation, patience, and a deep understanding of how nature behaves. Today, gardeners around the world are rediscovering these ideas and realizing that sometimes the smartest solutions are also the simplest. But this raises one final thought that many gardeners find inspiring. If a small clay pot buried in the soil can quietly transform the way plants grow, how many other forgotten techniques are still waiting to be rediscovered? And what might happen if we start paying closer attention to the wisdom hidden in the past? Imagine walking into your garden early in the morning. The soil is calm. The plants look healthy. Their leaves are firm, their color is deep, and the ground beneath them holds a quiet secret. Just below the surface, a simple clay pot is doing its work. No noise, no electricity, no complicated system. Just water slowly moving through tiny pores in the clay, reaching the roots exactly when the plants need it. That is the quiet power of the Olla. What makes this story fascinating is not just the technique itself, but the lesson behind it. More than 4,000 years ago, farmers living in harsh climates faced the same challenge gardeners face today: how to grow healthy plants while using limited water. They did not have modern irrigation technology. They did not have pumps, timers, or sprinklers. What they had was observation, patience, and a deep connection with the behavior of soil, water, and plants. By paying attention to how nature worked, they discovered a method that solved several problems at once. It reduced evaporation, it delivered water directly to roots, it stabilized soil moisture, and it helped plants grow stronger with less effort. Over time, as modern irrigation systems spread across the world, This simple idea was slowly forgotten in many places. Technology promised faster and easier solutions, and for a while it seemed like the old methods had become outdated. But today, something interesting is happening. Gardeners are beginning to rediscover that ancient knowledge often holds powerful answers. As water becomes more precious and sustainable gardening becomes more important, the Olla method feels less like an old trick and more like a hidden advantage. A single clay pot buried in the soil can quietly transform the way a garden survives heat, drought, and inconsistent watering. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this idea is its simplicity. You do not need a large budget. You do not need complex tools. You do not need advanced knowledge. Just a porous clay pot, water, and the willingness to work with nature instead of fighting against it. Sometimes the most powerful gardening breakthroughs are not new inventions. They are forgotten ideas waiting to be rediscovered. So the next time you water your garden, take a moment to imagine how many generations of farmers have stood in the soil before us, searching for ways to grow life with limited resources. And maybe the answer they left behind is already sitting quietly beneath the ground. If you enjoyed learning about this ancient irrigation secret, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments if you have ever tried the Olla method in your own garden. Your experience might inspire someone else to try this 4,000-year-old trick and see the difference for themselves.